of Rockingham. We all get to vote on Saturday week, I believe.
29th of July.
There we go, 29th of July. And now we've got Peter Hudson, who's running for the Liberal Party. And I had the pleasure of interviewing Peter last week. And like with Hayley, I learnt a lot of things. And that's the beauty of these forums here. You can send us a question if you like. But the beauty of these forums is we get to know what's happening in our neighbourhood, and we all need that if we're going to vote, I think. So, Peter, welcome.
Thanks very much for having me back, Nick. It was a great one last week. I think we got a lot of positive reception from the discussions that we had and answering the questions from the community, which, as you mentioned with Hayley, is so important. So really great to be back and give you a little bit of an update on where the campaign is and how everyone's sort of tracking in Rockingham.
It's great, and I think I mentioned off air, but I can mention on air. One of my children heard you last week, and she's not politically motivated at all, but she was rather impressed with what you said about what's happening in the community. So these interviews do get out there, and they do make a difference, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why I've been a supporter of IPL for such a long time.
You have.
We've got some excellent reach around the community, and I'm that, as we mentioned off there as well. I'm actively chasing up, people like the Mental Health Commission and a range of other government agencies on how can we get more support and more reach for IPL, because there is absolutely such great potential with this organisation. You guys do outstanding work, and I think that any MP around here that is interested in the local community should absolutely be involved with IPL.
Oh, thanks. That's kind words, but I do agree with you, funnily enough. I mean, and the beauty is that when Peter says things he means them. And that's the impression I got last week interviewing Peter. He's generally invested. It doesn't sound like a political claptrap. It actually sounds, when he says about the mental health, Peter will follow that up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that is so important. I think we mentioned last week, is that integrity and respect.
It is.
For the people that you are seeking to represent. People can tell if you're not genuine in politics. So it's something that's very important to me, is always to maintain that integrity and maintain it. It's basic human decency to give people the time of day, actively listen, and then if you say you're going to fight for something, actually go and do it.
Yes.
Make sure you deliver it. So I don't judge people by what they promise. I judge people by what they deliver and what are the actual outcomes.
Peter has a very wise head on young shoulders, let me tell you, because that's spot on, which I think any political person thinking in a political scheme, I think that's what they should aim to achieve, really. And for someone so young to have those principles in there and instilled, it's great. It really is.
Yeah.
So if you could, Peter, if you could tell us what's been happening in the last week or so since we last spoke, a few things, please.
Yes, yeah. Well, I know it has only been a week, but gee, we've packed it jam full of things that have been going on around the community. So, as everyone would know, this is a 24/7 job, or so it should be for anyone seeking elected office. So we've been working very, very hard for the past week. As I said, it's usually a 4 a.m. till 2 a.m. job.
Are you serious?
Yeah. We're going very, very hard on this. I do a lot of it myself. It's all volunteer, for myself and my team. So we're working day and night around the clock.
Wow.
Campaign. So going very hard, and that's everything from your social media management to finance negotiations, things like this. But really, what the guts of my job is speaking to people directly. So the past week has looked like we typically start out at 6 a.m. at the train station.
Are you serious?
Yeah. To speak to everyone living in Rockingham that's working north or going towards the city or even south in some cases. So we're up there every morning at the Rockingham train station.
Wow.
Talking to people. That's usually how the start of the morning goes. Can usually be followed by some catching me sign waving at a local intersection somewhere, just getting the face and name out there. So I've got a couple of keen volunteers who will help me out with those sort of things. And then from there, it's whatever the day looks like. There's not a single day that looks the same in politics. It's very much a dynamic campaign. And as you know, it's a very short campaign. So we're jamming a lot in there. So some of the events I can list off the top of my head since last week. A number of Chamber of Commerce events, so with the Rockingham Kwinana Chamber of Commerce, so they do an outstanding job of engaging with the City of Rockingham and the small business community, which, as you know, is my background. So we've had a Key Leaders in Business breakfast, which was hosted by the Ocean Clipper Inn. We've also had a business after hours at the Rockingham Flames. And on the Rockingham Flames, I was privileged enough to be there at the semi-finals hosted here in Rockingham between the Flames and the Perry Lake Hawks. which was, I believe, the 10th straight win for the Rockingham Flames. So they're top of the ladder.
Wow.
For the league, which is NBL1, which is one step below, the Perth Wildcats and that
yeah.
sort of league of basketball. So some really outstanding work going on there. Hosted some Rotary market stalls every Sunday. You can find me at the Village Green. A number of coffee catch-ups, as well as even one for the UFC. As you know, I'm a mixed martial artist, so we
did that.
Yep. Had a few people around there to teach the community, well, talk to them about who I am, but also learn a thing or two about my sport. So that was a really outstanding event, and also done a number of media appearances, including IPL, as you know. So yeah, been keeping really busy. But one event I actually ran last night, which I really want to hone in on, and I'll be interested to see what other people are sort of saying about this, is in relation to the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Act. So this is an act, it's a state government piece of legislation, came into effect on the 1st of July.
Yeah.
And to say it's been unpopular, I don't think is a controversial statement. It's been met with some pretty heavy backlash. There's actually been 30,000 signatures put on an e-petition in the last 2 weeks alone, trying to delay this act. Obviously, the Labor Party has a pretty strong majority in the Parliament, so this was rammed down the Parliament's throat within 2 days. They rammed it through guillotine's debate on the floor of the Assembly, and it is now law. So without any debate or amendments, that act has gone through. And so as a response to that, I actually ran a community forum with the WA Liberal leader, Libby Metham, as well as the Shadow Minister for Planning, Neil Thompson. We ran that at the Gary Holland Community Centre last night. That was blown out of the water for attendance. The room was jam-packed full. If anyone goes onto my social media now, you'll see there are people lining up out the door waiting to get in just to listen to what everyone had to say.
Oh, wow.
The point of the meeting was for myself as the candidate for Rockingham, as well as Libby and Neil through their professional outlook, to give an update on where the Liberal Party is with this act, how we're fighting back against the injustices the act have caused. But more importantly, we're able to take probably an hour and a half to 2 hours of questions from the public. And I tell you, there was no shortage of questions, confusion, frustration from the people of Rockingham and surrounds. People even travelled from outside the area to come and listen to us here. So it was a really successful event in our eyes, in that we were able to listen to so many people. And as we spoke about at the top of the show, it's all about having deliverable outcomes. What are the actions that are going to come from that?
Yeah.
And so from there, we've moved to what's called a disallowance motion in the upper house of the State Parliament, which is the Legislative Council. So what that effectively means is, if we could pass this motion, then the laws would be disallowed. They would be made invalid. And that is exactly what we need at this point in time, because the Act as it stands is totally unsuitable. Totally unsuitable. It's initially designed to impact big owner-operator miners like Rio Tinto, who are responsible for Dipping Gorge and a number of other incidents like that. But in reality, this Act is targeting people in Rockingham. It's targeting people who live on residences that are in excess of 1,100 square metres. And I won't go into too much detail about the specifics of the Act, but effectively what that means, if you are doing land-altering activities on your property, putting in fences or soap wells or whatever it may be, you can be up for some horrendous fines and even imprisonment as a residence or a hobby farmer or a cattle farmer or something like that. So the Act has totally missed the mark, and that's why there were so many people that attended last night. So I'd be keen to hear a little bit. Have you heard anything about this? Or has any listeners brought this to your attention? Because I know that there are some candidates in this by-election who are saying, no, haven't heard anything about this at all. No one's saying anything. But judging by last night's reception, this is a really crucial issue.
Yeah, I was speaking to Hayley previous to yourself, and I was saying to her, I think the hardest thing is getting the message out there, because people will switch on Channel 7 News and, like you say, they may show a big mining company and, that's okay, they should be doing it. But I don't think that there's been much focus or hard questions asked. What about the people who own, 1,100 square metres of land in Rockingham or Shoalwater or whatever? Why hasn't the question, and that's the thing, obviously, I don't know how the media works, I really don't, but, you'd think that there should be some, if people don't know, I never knew until it was mentioned last week, and I like to think that I'm relatively attuned to what happens in my community. So it's a scary thing, I think, to be honest with you. It won't affect me personally, but it doesn't mean that I don't care.
Yeah, look, and I think that's why there were a lot of people who were both Rockingham locals, but also coming from outside the area, because some of these people aren't affected directly. I'm happy to say I'm not affected directly. I don't have a property in excess of 1,100 square metres. But it sets a really dangerous precedent.
Oh, doesn't it?
Here. To go into a bit of detail on this. So what they're looking to do is any property, whether it be a large residence, like some people have an acre backyard, for example.
They do.
Or even if you've got a small hobby farm, or if you have a property out in Mundajong and you've got a couple of cows out there, you are now affected by this act. And it means things like you can't move more than 20 kilograms of soil. You can't dig deeper than 50 centimetres.
You're kidding.
Yeah, all of these ridiculous and arbitrary regulations that have come in. And there's no clarity on who is affected and why. So some of these farmers who, for example, have been living on the same farm for 5, 6, 7 generations, they're now being told that, and they know, and I'll say this, they know that there is no Aboriginal cultural heritage there. Like, everyone's got a lot of goodwill on this issue. Everyone wants to protect Aboriginal cultural heritage. I'll say that from the get-go. But farmers who've been living on the same property, farming as a job for 7 generations, now being told that they need to approach a consultant at their own expense, $160 an hour, for a consultant to come out and tell them yes or no, you are violating the regulations of the Act. It's frankly ridiculous. It's an attack on property rights. Private property rights of the individual is something I believe in, and as a Liberal, it's something that is important to us. But the farmers are telling me that they are so worried. I had one lady last night actually tell me she's got a sick cow. She wants to bury her cow on her property, but they won't put the cow down because she is petrified that someone without a warrant is going to come onto their land and tell them they're in violation for digging deep enough to bury livestock on their own property. And the consequences of that, unsure, because there's no guidelines or regulations, but they do know they could be up for a fine of up to $1 million and 5 years imprisonment. So as I said, the Act has totally missed the mark, and the government has had an atrocious communications campaign with this. They've come out way too late in the game, haven't clearly articulated why the Act is in place and who it affects. And as a result, that's why there's so much confusion and frustration, so that leading to the massive attendance that we had at the forum last night.
A couple of questions. First question, and it might be a bit of left field, Peter. Who makes these, if you like, who makes these rules? Like, let's just say, what organisation said, oh, well, we'll make it 1,100 square metres. Yeah, okay. Well, who made? I mean, my question is, who makes those decisions? Like, where does that come from?
Yeah, look, it's a question that we will never have answered directly on give me a single name.
An organisation.
An organisation you could probably say would be the Department of Aboriginal Affairs at the state level, and the Department of Planning has also had a large part to play in this. But if you are looking for who's spearheading this, it's actually the Aboriginal Affairs Minister of Western Australia, Anthony Butty. So he's been totally missing from the media, and in my view, it's probably on purpose. He's been out of the media for the last 10 days with no comment on the Act since the Act has come into play, because they know that the Act is not fit for purpose. But ultimately, it speaks to the leadership of Roger Cook as the Premier, because this was the first Act that Roger Cook has pushed through the Parliament since he has been the Premier of Western Australia. So he was expecting an easy goal here. And it's been, they've been thinking about this type of Act for a while. Obviously, Dukat Gorge was in 2016, so it's been on the cards. But he's come through in such a ham-fisted way. The implementation of the Act has been a fiasco. So I really put it down to it's the Minister, but more so is the Premier, who's not listening. And to have an e-petition run by my colleague, Neil Thompson, reaching over 30,000 signatures in 2 weeks, and that's not, there's no paid advertising or anything like that. It's an organic e-petition that you can go and Google for 30,000 people, 10,000 of those being located in the metro area, to come out and say this Act needs repealing, amending, whatever it may be. That is a significant grassroots movement. And the Premier's response to that was, it's just an e-petition. Don't worry about it. It's not a real thing. The fact is that e-petition was submitted to the Legislative Council and has gone to a standing committee on environment and public affairs. So this is a totally legitimate e-petition signed by 30,000 Western Australians, and the Premier just brushed it off, adding to the frustration and the confusion of locals, because if they sign a petition that's submitted to the Premier it's the largest petition in Western Australia's history.
Gee whiz.
For the Premier to come out and say, no, don't worry about it, we're just pushing the laws through, that's causing a lot of frustration. People don't feel listened to, they feel ignored. And that's exactly what I'm hearing on the ground in Rockingham as well. I'm on the doors and at small businesses every day, as you know, and they are telling me that they feel ignored by the government. And this Act is one example of the blasé attitude that they have to Rockingham and Western Australia generally.
It's interviewed Peter last week, and I must say, just listening to Peter, this would be the most passionate I've heard you, and I think with just cause. And that I'm not talking political bias here, but as a layman out there, I find it. I can understand your intensity and your passion about this, because to me, I'm not saying who's right or who's wrong, but to me, there's just to sort of push it through when you've got 30,000 people asking a question, it just doesn't seem fair.
Yeah, that's a term that we should be hearing more in politics, I think.
Yeah.
What is fair? And look, it's something that hasn't been played out in this case. I don't think it's fair. And that goes back to what we spoke about last week on why I'm running for Rockingham, is because I believe we need to bring the value of statesmanship back to state politics. Statesmanship being that we do the right thing. We do the right thing by the community, by the people. We're not worried about doing the right thing by my own personal career. We're not worried about doing the right thing by the Labor Party or the Liberal Party or whoever it may be. We're worried about doing what is the right course of action, even if it's not the most popular, even if you have to backtrack. You need to do the right thing for the community. That's why I'm standing. That's why I'm intense and why I'm passionate about it.
Oh, it's great.
Because 30,000 people have told me, and the people of Rockingham have told me when I've been out and about on the ground, that we need to fight them on this, because they have lost their way. The government has lost their way on this issue in particular. They have done an about-face that's led to negative outcomes for locals and small businesses. That's why I put my hand up, is to fight for them. So I'm not going to be silent. I'm going to be getting up there. And that's exactly why, as we spoke about last week, we need to be making Rockingham a marginal or a blue seat. Ideally, if we could change the seat of Rockingham blue, then we would have a strong voice in myself to fight Roger Cook and the minister on this act for the people of Rockingham. The fact is, if we left Rockingham in the state that it is now, there will be no one fighting against this act except the Liberals that are already in Parliament. And my colleagues do an outstanding job, but they are a small team.
They are.
They need people like me in there, and that is why Rockingham needs to turn Rockingham blue.
That's as I say, I was saying to Hayley, it's great that both you and Hayley, you're out there, and by that I mean 6 o'clock in the morning at a train station. I mean, working until 2 o'clock in the morning and getting up and doing this. I mean, you know, I think no matter what party you are, you know, of me again, you're a young man, and for you to have that drive and that passion, it's a great thing in somebody, as I said, old head and young shoulders. It's a great thing, and I do commend you for that.
Yeah, no, look, it's something, as we spoke about last week, I've had for a long time. I'm very much driven by the community and being able to give back to the community. And one other way that we'll be looking to do that, and Hayley's involved in this as well, is I understand that IPL is actually hosting a debate at the Gary Holland Centre this coming Sunday. Now, that's going to be an excellent opportunity for the public to come and question their candidates who are seeking their representation. They're seeking to hold office on behalf of the people. It's going to be a really great opportunity for people to come and speak to myself and to Hayley and to the other candidates about what their plans are for Rockingham. This is the opportunity where people need to articulate clearly what their vision is for Rockingham so that people can make their decision on why they should be the elected member.
It was interesting speaking to Hayley, and obviously you would know this, and, you know, I said to Hayley, it's the brilliant thing about it is that you learn so much. You know, I learn a lot, and hopefully the people out there in the listener land, they and I was astounded when it just clicked when Hayley mentioned that we haven't got a performing arts centre in Rockingham, and yet down the road in Mandurah. So if somebody like a group, or I was saying, hey, like somebody who is no longer an A-grade performer, but they play at the smaller venues, they can go down to Mandurah Rock, Mandurah Rock, but we don't have anywhere here in Rockingham, a major region that they can play. I find that astounding.
And it's just one example. There are so many examples of critical infrastructure needed in Rockingham, whether it's your performing arts, whether it's tourism infrastructure, even things like sporting and recreation infrastructure. I'm close with the team at Rockingham Flames. They've been asking for funding from the state government for an additional 4 courts because there's over 3,000 members that actively are involved in the Rockingham Flames, and they've got several hundred kids in a wait list because they can't get any funding to have the capacity and space for these kids to come and play basketball. So you're exactly right. There are so many examples where we need much greater infrastructure, whether it be your performing arts, and I know Brenton's involved in that, who is another host that I've spoken with an IPL before. So there's a whole host of issues and infrastructure where Rockingham needs to see that development, whether it be the economic outcomes, tourism, delivery, or whether it be things like your sports and recreation or your performing arts, all sorts of things like that. We definitely need to see more action from the state government in this area.
Do you find that, and I'm sort of generalised question here, is that if you were to spend the money, with, let's say these basketball courts, but surely you would more than get that back.
That's right, and it's the old saying as it goes: if you build it, they will come. That's absolutely true. And the projections of growth for Rockingham are huge. And to pivot into a defence sort of background, which is where I come from, as a bit of a passion point, we're going to by 2027, everyone would be aware that we will be hosting nuclear submarines just in Coburn Sound, just off of Rockingham. The fact is, we are going to host 2,000 American sailors and their families in Rockingham by 2027. So that's a totally, and it's almost going to be they will drop in straight away in 2027 as the boats arrive. So what that means is we're going to have a population explosion. Now, I think that the statistic is Rockingham will grow by a population of 100,000 by the year 2046. And that's a massive increase. That's a massive increase. And we need to see the infrastructure in the area develop and grow to be able to cope with this increase in population. If it won't, Rockingham will become overcrowded, and people like you and I have lived here all our lives. We may, in fact, be crowded out. There will be people leave Rockingham if there is no development in the infrastructure.
Yep.
And that extends to everything. Like those American sailors, yes, they will need defence infrastructure like the Garden Island Highway, which is a project that I'm fighting for. But they're also going to want to live in Rockingham and contribute to the local economy.
Well, they will do, won't they?
That's why we need development like the Port Rockingham Marina, like out at Cape Perrin. These are all projects that I'm fighting for as well. And all of those people, they've got lives outside of work and spending their money on coffee on Saturday morning. They might go play basketball. They might be looking to play American football. Who knows? But we don't know because we don't have plans for infrastructure put in place in Rockingham. That's what we so desperately need in this area by the state government.
Yes, I get the feeling, speaking to Hayley as well, that and to yourself, Peter, that it's been hugely ignored, Rockingham, for such a big place with so much potential, and Garden Island coming on and the submarines. It seems that it just doesn't make sense, does it? No. Like, it's not like you could pick somewhere else. I'm not going to say the suburb. You might pick a suburb and it gets hundreds or millions and millions spent on it, but really there's nothing going on there. And here at Rockingham, we've got a lot going on and we're not getting any funding, you're saying.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely the case. And as we mentioned last week, it's probably in the last 6.5 years when the former Premier came into government as the Premier himself, Rockingham has been left in the dust. We've been left so under-resourced and neglected by WA Labor. The fact of that is because it's such a safe seat. They're not worried about having to win or run a proper campaign like they are not doing in this by-election. The campaign they're running has been quite lackluster. It's because they're not worried. They don't think that we don't need to pump any money in here. We don't need to commit to any projects that are going to improve Rockingham because the people will vote for Labor all the same. That's a mentality that we need to break. And that's actually what I've been seeing on the ground is people are waking up. They do not want to just see Rockingham stay stagnant like it is. Someone like Hayley is an advocate for this as well. She's someone who's pushed a lot of infrastructure on her capacity as local council.
Yep.
So there's been a lot of movement on this by the voters that they are willing to see change. They are telling me that Rockingham needs to develop. Some of these people are rusted on Labor voters. I'll tell you a story. At the train station yesterday, I used to work with a lady in her late 50s, maybe early 60s. So she comes to the train station and I'll see her say g'day and hand out the flyers and all that good stuff. I know she's a rusted on Labor voter. Voted Labor all of her life. Even during my federal campaign last year, she said, no way will I ever vote Liberal. She took a flyer off me and I said, have a good day and catch you later. And she said, she just told me out of the blue, I'm changing this time. For the first time in her life, she's not going to vote Labor. She's going to put me first because she's seen me out and about in the community. She knows that I'm committed to Rockingham, to fighting for the people.
That's so important. And I was saying to Hayley, and I know you do this as well, you're contactable. And you see, when I say just a voter, I'm just a voter. What impresses me is that if I want to contact Peter, there's all the contact numbers there. There's all the details there. If I send Peter a message or a question, he'll get back to me. So to me, that says that bloke cares. He is listening. And I said to Haley, we've got all these means of communication, Peter, and yet we communicate less.
You're right. Yeah, no, I think that communication among the community is absolutely crucial. And
Yeah.
as we said last week, being in touch with your local member is absolutely crucial. Now, I know we're on radio, but there are cameras around. This is the phone that I use for my campaign. It's on my right pocket at all times. It's been lighting up while we've been discussing, but every phone call that I possibly can, I take. I respond to all of my messages, whether you shoot it through to my email, on Facebook, or whatever it is. You need to be contactable.
Of course you do.
I've actually got 2 phones because I've got so many people reaching out to me, and it's all done by myself. I am the person on the other end of the line. I was on the phone last night till about 1 in the morning talking to voters who were asking, where can I go to vote early? How can I get the how to vote cards for the Liberal Party? All sorts of things. So being contactable is absolutely the key. I know Haley does that quite well as well.
Yep.
Don't know what the other candidates are doing in terms of their strategy around that, but I'm always committed to always listening to the people of Rockingham. And if someone calls me and says I need some help with this assistance, I want to make an appointment with you, it's coming back to deliverable outcomes. I will always commit to fighting for those people, actioning their issues, and bringing that in the state parliament.
That's brilliant. And just for people out there who think we're banging a drum here at IPL, it's just purely not the case. We say to all the candidates, if they would like to make themselves available, we would like to interview them. So doesn't matter which party they are. We are open to having them on because we're not one way or the other. And at this stage, I know there's some other people. I think the lady from the Cannabis Party had an interview. Peter has been in twice. Haley has been in twice. We've reached out to other candidates, and as far as I know, we haven't had any response. So we're not pushing any barrow at all. So just let people out there know that it's not anti anything here.
Yeah. No, and that's something I can actually speak to as well because I've been involved with IPL for a very long time.
Yep.
I know that IPL is apolitical. You go across it. There's pictures on the wall with Mark McGowan and Roger Cook just out the door of where I'm sitting. So I can definitely vouch for that IPL is apolitical. It was interesting that I heard though, and it's been confirmed to me by a number of sources that the debate on Sunday that the candidate for the Labor Party has said that she won't attend. So, and that's actually quite bizarre to me. So it's one thing to make yourself available for an interview in this setting, but in a space where you've got candidates from almost all the other parties, barring a couple of independents, attending the debate for the party that holds this seat not to show up, I find it to be quite questionable.
I just don't think it's, again, I use the word fair. I don't think it's fair on the prospective voters, because we want to know.
Yeah, well, that's right. As I said before, it's the opportunity for the voters to elect their next local representative. It is their opportunity to get to know that person and hear about where they come from, what they've actually been doing around the community, and what their vision is for Rockingham. So I think it's more than a fair ask for all the candidates to show up. So I would call, I would really like to listen to the opposite candidate on what her views are and what she would like to do for Rockingham. So I would employ her to come along and just have a friendly conversation. But again, as I said last week, you know me, I'm a very positive campaigner.
Yep.
I'm not out to sludge anyone.
No.
I'm very much about what I'm going to deliver for the community. So I'll be looking to make some exciting announcements on Sunday.
There we go.
I'll have my team there with me on the ground all day, every day. So we'll all be coming along to the debate there. And I'll be really looking forward to getting to know, especially the audience in the room, the voters in the room, who are the most important. But I'll also be looking forward to hearing a bit more from the other candidates on what their plans are for Rockingham.
It's great. And as I say, I can only wish you, Peter, as I did Haley, I can only wish you all the best. And it's obviously up to the voters who they vote for. But I just implore people, I will say this, which is not political, listen to all sides of politics, because there's a lot of people here trying to get Rockingham up and running. And my last two guests, be it Peter and Haley, their genuineness in getting involved in the community and getting up and running is absolutely superb. So that's not saying who you should or shouldn't vote for. It's just saying that have a listen and make your mind up, because there are some really, really quality people out there trying to help Rockingham. So, Peter, as always, you're kicking a lot of goals, as your namesake did.
That's right.
And whatever you do, those pictures of Mark McGowan and Roger Cook, don't take them off the wall, mate.
No, of course not, mate.
Thanks again, Peter.
Thanks very much.
Good on you, mate. Cheers.